May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be pleasing to you, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Well, this is a pretty baffling parable. It is notoriously difficult to interpret and to preach on. And every time I have to teach it, I read commentaries, I look at all the Bible notes, I read sermons, and every time I conclude, no one has any clue what it is about. Every time. And yet, it is my job to get up here and say something meaningful. So, we're going to try to unravel it just a little bit at least. Let's start with the story. We have a rich man, a landowner, and he has a manager or a steward who manages his property. It's this manager's job to go and collect rent, to collect his debts. We don't know what the manager has done, but he's done something bad enough to get himself fired. And the manager has no plan B, nothing to fall back on. So he is facing a crisis. And he quickly decides, I know what I'll do. I'll come up with a plan to lower these people's debts, to lower their rent, so that when I'm fired, they'll owe me and I'll have somewhere to go. They'll help me out. It's a very clever plan, and there's disagreement about exactly how he lowers the debt. But however it is that he does it, it's a very clever way. The first possibility is that he just goes through and says, hey, you owe less than you say. We're going to just lower those debts. Dishonest, because it's not his debt to lower, but very clever because in a culture that values honor more than wealth, the landowner is not going to be able to go back to his tenants and say, oh, actually, you owe me the full amount, even though my manager, who I hired and who I sent to you, has said you owe less. So the plan's going to work. The other possibility is that the landowner is illegally charging interest, a moral and illegal practice according to Jewish law. And the manager simply says, you don't have to pay any interest, you're just paying on the principal. Also clever, because the landowner can't go back and say, oh no, you owe me that illegal interest I've been charging and you didn't know about. So either way, the manager is going to get his way. These people are going to owe him and are going to be willing to help out. So the landowner, despite losing money, commends him for his cleverness. He's lost money, he's been bested by his manager, but the manager is nothing if not clever. And this brings me to the only interpretation of the parable that makes even a little bit of sense to me. And I'm still not sure it's quite right, but we're going to go with it today. Perhaps Jesus is saying to us, if even this dishonest man can face a crisis and use everything at his disposal in order to create and achieve his goal, how much more important is it for you, my disciples, to use everything at your disposal to achieve the goals of the kingdom of God? How much more important is it for you to act urgently and to achieve what heaven wants, your eternal home, to achieve the establishment of the new heaven and the new earth that God is working through you to bring about? The manager knew he was facing a crisis, and he reacted with urgency and with resourcefulness. We too are facing a crisis. For some of us, it's because of personal tragedies or losses. There's a crisis in our hearts of faith and of hope. For some of us, it's because of what's going on in our world. We see war, we see violence, we see the needy and vulnerable being rampantly mistreated. We see injustice, we see political violence, we see divisions we don't know how to overcome. We see cruelty being normalized. We are at a place of crisis in our world. Amos was too. Amos talks about how the poor and needy are being trampled. He responds with prophetic power power. The manager responds to his crisis with urgency, with all of his resourcefulness. So the question before us today is, what will we do with the crisis we see in our own hearts and the crisis we see in our own world? Will we respond with the cleverness, with the urgency, with the resourcefulness of the manager? Will we respond with the prophetic power of Amos? Will we take all of our time, our talents, our treasures, and use them to accomplish God's purposes, to work for justice, to work for peace, to work for love, to walk in the way of Christ? May it be so.